All right, so welcome back to yet another video. In this one, we're gonna be talking about the for loop. Right. So I taught you guys the while loop in the previous video. Right? So in this one, we're gonna look at the while loop, right? So if you remember correctly, with the while loop, I said you initialize outside, then you check the condition, then you increment inside the loop. Right? So the for loop works a bit differently, right? So let me just the for loop works a bit differently. I'm going to erase that because now you believe me when I say the final value is yeah. Okay. So like I said, remember I said let me just change the title here, for loop. So remember what I said, that you need these 3 steps, right? You need these 3 steps. It doesn't matter, the order doesn't matter, right? It might change per loop, but you need to have these 3 steps in order for your loop to be accurate, to be successful, right? So with the for loop is a bit differently, right? So the for loop works in this way, right? So for, and then you open up your curly bracket where you're gonna write your conditions and stuff. So the for loop, you initialize inside the for loop, right? So inside the for loop a header, right? So this part right here, the for loop header. So you initialize in here, right? So int x is equal to 0. Or let me use 1, right? And then you do a semicolon while you are inside the bracket, right? And then you do a check immediately after x less than or equal to 10, and then close again, and then x plus plus, right? So you've initialized, check, and incremented all in the same line. That is the for loop, right? You've done all 3 steps in one line, and then you open up your bracket, your braces, sorry. And then right in here, you can have your system.out.print line, and then you print out the value of x, right? So x has been created and only exists inside this for loop, right? I want to show you guys what I mean. Right. So now if we run this and then do this, as you can see, 1, 2, 3, all the way until 10. Right? So if you tried to print out the x value, right? Maybe we do the same thing, right? The final value of x is, and then you try to print it out right here. Right? So plus x, right? So this is going to give you an error, right? And I'm going to explain to you why that is so. So I've saved, and then when I do this, it's telling me that it cannot find the symbol x. Right? That's because when we initialized x, we initialized it inside the for loop header. So it only exists, x only exists inside the for loop itself, right? So once you go outside the for loop, x no longer exists, okay? So you'll need to be very careful about how you do your for loop. But anyway, I think the for loop is the easiest loop for counting, because as you can see, this is basically this is all that we've done, right? Instead of initializing outside, equal to 1, then do all of those extra steps. So this simple program prints numbers from 1 to 10, right? And it doesn't matter. You can actually change this to be 100, right? So it doesn't matter. And this is going to print from 0 to 100. And or if you want to go in 2s, you can actually do 2 here and change the value here to be plus equal to 2, right? So this is going to count in 2s, just to test that out. There it is. As you can see, it's moving in 2s, right? So you don't need to always increment by 1. You can, it just depends on you on how you want to move, right? So plus plus for increment by 1, and then just change this here to be less than 10, right? So it's just up to you how you want to move. You don't have to necessarily move 1 by 1. You can move by 3s, you can move. It all depends on what you are trying to do. All right, this has been the for loop. I hope you guys have learned something, and I'll see you guys on the next video where we're going to talk about the do while.